Welcome in to the Great Debate. Okay, that's my stupid impression of J-Rock, whose little fanboy intro. But this week, J-Rock's a little distracted, so it's just going to be me. Now, how can you have a debate with just one person? Well, you can't really. So I'm calling this the good old loosen up version of the Great Debate, where you kind of just sit back, chill, pour yourself a favorite beverage, and just kind of talk about any kind of subject, that warrants a little bit of discussion. So, with me, of course, from The Arcade, one of our other shows on the Wired In Network, and frequent guest on the show, is Jedi J. Jay, are you on the line?
Hi, Rob.
Okay, so today, I thought instead of just debating back and forth and waiting for J-Rock's judgment, since he's not here, you and I could just talk about, cartoon shows, and specifically, what makes, a good cartoon villain. And maybe we can even revisit cartoon heroes in the second segment by contrast. But let's talk cartoon villains, just back and forth. Who are some of the villains that stand out to you as soon as you think of cartoon villain?
Well, you and I are kind of the same age, so I think we grew up with the same stuff.
And I guess I'm going to say to cartoon villains, let's just exclude like comic book properties, so we won't talk about like Super Friends or any of the Marvel cartoons or the Batman cartoons, because that's a whole nother ball of wax. We're talking stuff that was like maybe independent from comic book origins for the most part.
Okay, now I need a bit more info from you. What do you mean,
Sure.
like sinister villains, or just ones that we liked for personality reasons?
Let's just talk about what sticks out in your mind as a good villain. Like, what are some of your favorite villains, either growing up or that still resonate, or when you see them on the screen again, or when you see them, I don't know, in their current form? What are some of your favorite villains? And then maybe let's try to dissect them and what makes them good or memorable.
Galvatron from Transformers Generation 1. And I might add, not the Leonard Nimoy Galvatron, although he was cool.
Yeah.
The TV show Galvatron where he was fucking insane. I love that villain.
Yeah, there was an interesting kind of dramatic thing that you pointed out there. On the TV show, he was definitely much more like, I don't want to say wacky, but not quite insane, but he was definitely off his rocker. Like he was, a few circuits short of a full load or something like that.
No, he was insane. At the end of the Transformers movie, Rodimus throws him. Remember, he throws him through Unicron, and you see Galvatron go, "Ah, buddy!" And anyway, he lands on a planet called Char, and he lands in like this lava shit, and
Space mud.
He's lying there for a long time, and anyway, it messes with his circuits in his brain. So when he finally gets pulled out of it, he's a little wacky. So I really like that part of him. He's really unpredictable. He kills his men like on a whim.
Right.
Unlike Megatron. Megatron was evil, but he was a little more calm. Galvatron is just batshit fucking crazy.
Right, and it's interesting that you make the distinction between the two. Even though they are, you could look at them in some sense the same.
Well,
person.
It's an evolution, right, of Megatron, right? So.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Would you say that's the same kind of evolution that Hot Rod goes to become Rodimus, or is it different because they're like Megatron and Galvatron are two different personalities?
I don't know, man. I don't know how to answer that. I've often wondered that myself, because Unicron, it gives him a stronger body. Remember, he essentially makes him Megatron 2.0.
Yeah.
So he's really the same guy. But he's got a lot more like attitude. Remember, Starscream thinks Megatron's dead. He's going to take over the organization. Galvatron swoops down, doesn't even say anything, just fucking blows him away and kills him.
Yeah, and then they make a cool figure of that Starscream point with the cape and the crown. Wasn't that a figure at some point, whether it was a PVC or something?
Yeah, that was a Japanese PVC figure. Fuck. Remember those fucking things we collected, man? Oh,
those were fucking great, man. I mean, they were only, like 2 inches or 3 inches tall, but they were really cool.
Yeah, PVC plastic, and they didn't move, which who cares anyway.
Yeah, I mean, because we just pose them. I mean, I showed you before we started rolling my Masters of the Universe Staction figures, which are statue action figures that have no points of articulation, but they're just going to sit on the shelf or in a package anyway, so that's So what I think you're getting at here, Jay, is that you really like the character, the persona of Galvatron. Is there anybody else that kind of sticks out for you? I mean, it's not going to be a surprise to some of our listeners because I always kind of, harp on He-Man, and I just mentioned it, 10 seconds ago, but
yeah,
Skeletor is huge for me.
I knew you were going to pick Skeletor. That's pretty obvious to all the listeners out there. Rob is like the biggest He-Man fan in the world.
But I've tussled with this one in the last few weeks because, as you've noticed on Facebook, because we're personal friends and stuff, of course, I've been collecting a lot of cell art from the He-Man show, and I got one very cool one where He-Man's helping Skeletor up on Castle Grayskull because there's one episode where they have to use their magic together with Sorceress to stop a common foe that's going to destroy all Eternia. But
Who was that?
It's some sort of cosmic being that Skeletor released by mistake, and then Skeletor couldn't stop it. So, long story short,
that was in the first series, right? That wasn't in like the Space He-Man stuff, right?
Yeah, no, that was the Filmation series, not the Deke series. But
okay.
I've been thinking about this. I really like Hordak a lot too, and I mean, I think my favorite faction out of the Masters of the Universe, because you have, of course, He-Man and those guys. Then you have Skeletor and what are the Evil Warriors. You have the Snake Men with King Hiss leading the way, but you also have Hordak in the Horde, which the toys came out as part of the He-Man line, but they were in the cartoon, in the She-Ra cartoon.
Yeah.
So, So, I mean, I'm a really big fan of Hordak because, of course, Skeletor was Hordak's student. Hordak taught Skeletor everything he needed to know.
That's cool. I forgot that.
So... and the difference between the two is Skeletor is more magical based. He's more of a kind of wizard, where Hordak is more of a technological figure because, he can transform various body parts and his whole figure into different machines and robots. I think somebody looked it up on She-Ra, and he can transform into 130 different forms or something like that.
Yeah. I remember watching that, and I always liked Hordak the best, too. I just thought he was cooler than Skeletor. Skeletor was always kind of weaselish, and Hordak was he seemed more ballsy, and I liked his minions better too. Let's try and remember. I know you'll remember them all, but let me try and remember.
Sure.
Grizzlor.
Yep.
Leech.
Yep.
Modulok.
No? We'll come back to that. Modulok was a Horde toy for sure. He was released as a Horde toy.
There was the other fucking guy. What was his name? He was the same as Modulok, but he was like half robot.
He was Multibot.
Multibot. Okay. Wasn't there? There was a woman.
There was two. There was two women.
Wasn't it Cat something?
Catra.
Yes.
And
okay.
Keep going. There's two big. There's actually two more women.
Isn't there the guy? Who's the guy with the googly eyes? I forget.
Mentena.
Isn't he a Horde?
Yeah, he's a Horde. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Shit. There's two more girls, really?
Yeah. One of them they never made a toy of that I know of, and then one they just released a toy.
Okay. Forgive my primitive description. It's the witch, right? Doesn't she have some kind of veil, or she has white eyes?
Shadow Weaver.
That's right. Okay.
So that's one.
I don't know who the other one is. Tell me.
Scorpia. She had the tail and the scorpion claws.
Yeah. See, I don't remember her.
Yeah, she kind of spoke like a man. She wasn't in a lot. And then there's a whole bunch of other little ones. There's like Imp, who they never made a toy of. Remember Hordak's Blue Imp? And then and there's Horde Prime, and then there's the Horde Prince, and there's a whole bunch of little guys that made cameos in the She-Ra cartoon. But that's the essential, evil Horde, those guys that you just mentioned there. And of course, you could argue Force Captain Adora before she was, unbrainwashed because she was under a magic spell by Shadow Weaver, and then He-Man came and lifted that spell, and then she realized she was She-Ra, yada yada. But
what I liked about Hordak's crew, as opposed to Skeletor's as well, was Hordak had those. They look kind of like robots, soldiers.
Yeah, the Horde troopers.
Yeah, those were cool. Like, I don't think Skeletor had a uniformed soldier like that.
Well, he did have robots. They were pretty fucking shitty though. They
Yeah,
were
but I
really
mean, like,
shitty.
there wasn't a toy of those, was there? Like Skeletor's robots. Like all his guys were like Merman, Trapjaw, Beastman, blah blah blah. But you didn't have like just like foot soldier like from Turtles. You know, you had like 1,000 foot soldiers.
Yeah, well, but here's the big difference, though, right? I mean, in She-Ra, the villains were the ones ruling the planet, so they had the resources for that kind of thing, you know. And the heroes were part of the rebellion, the Great Rebellion that were hiding out in the woods. Where in He-Man, it was flip-flopped, where the good guys kind of ruled the planet, and with Skeletor's little kind of rebellion trying to not even take over the whole planet, but just try to get into Castle Grayskull. I mean, I think the Horde is a really cool faction, but I think probably overall I really like a lot of Skeletor's minions. I mean, Skeletor's minions really remind me kind of like the DC universe. You got like Beastman for the animal stuff. You got Merman for like the water stuff. You've got Triclops. You've got Trapjaw. They just seem really kind of unique and very focused and segmented, which is cool. But the Horde stuff, again, because I probably think the Horde is probably better. They're a little bit more character driven. Well,
the Skeletor's henchmen were always so stupid. I don't know if the comic book they were a little different. I remember the 2000 cartoon series, they were a bit better, but Beastman was dumb as shit. Merman was an idiot. Trapjaw was cool, but again, he was a dumbass. Like, did he have anybody that was really, really cool? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, and by the way, fucking the movie Blade and Sorod.
Yeah.
Were they ever like? They weren't ever in the show at all, right?
No, they were never in the show. They were in mini comics because remember all the figures were originally packaged with a mini comic that usually had the figure in it. So they were in that.
Those comics were wicked, man. They were like serious, you know. They weren't like they weren't like they weren't like the silly 80s show, you know.
Well, I think that the Horde probably comes off better because they had to be a greater threat than Skeletor, right? I mean, He-Man and She-Ra had to have a greater threat than what was being presented. So you got to kind of up the odds with somebody that's done this before, that's a little bit more serious. But I mean, this really gets into one of the questions I wanted to throw at you. You know, how much does a villain's henchmen or team members really, you know, help in terms of liking the villains? You know, I think Skeletor's pretty cool on his own, but you bring a valid point saying, you know, if he's got to like depend or rely on his, you know, henchmen, then it's probably kind of game over. But, you know, Hordak, his henchmen are kind of cool enough that, you know, he might win the day. So, I mean, you know, let's go back to Galvatron and Scourge and some of those guys.
Even a better example of that would be, like, henchmen making a villain. I would have to give that then to Megatron. Yeah. Because Megatron had Soundwave, who was his badass #1. And then you had Starscream, who was also kind of like the Cobra Commander, Weasley kind of guy who was always trying to, you know, shoot Megatron in the back and stuff. And it made for a really cool dynamic.
Soundwave is #1. I find that interesting. I would have always said Starscream #1 and Soundwave #2.
No, Soundwave was always Megatron's #1, and Shockwave was his man in Cybertron. And Starscream was the leader of the Jets, but he was like, I don't know. He was, you know, Starscream was always trying to overthrow Megatron every fucking chance he got. It was like,
I just figure Starscream was #1 because when Megatron transformed, Starscream was always the one that would shoot him.
No, that's not. Soundwave did a lot. Lots of Decepticons did actually, but
I think you're making it up.
No, I don't think so. Actually, yes, Starscream did, but I remember Soundwave did a lot too. I don't know. Interesting.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Cobra Commander. That's another big series, I think, G.I. Joe. Everybody can relate to that. I think that's a really good case where I think a hugely strong character. I'm a huge fan of Cobra Commander and both the veil that he wore that era, the metal mask that he wore, and there was one other uniform that he had, did he not?
Yeah. The late 80s he had, it was like a silver armor where you could actually see his eyes.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, you could see his eyes in the hood too, but
right.
Yeah, the silver armor one wasn't very good. It was just he looked like a spaceman or something. It was stupid. But I think, I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think for Cobra Commander, I think it's really interesting because I think, you know, the henchmen or the team around him, you could argue that they're cooler than the actual villain, even though the Cobra Commander is the main character. I mean, I'm a huge fan of like Zaymot and Tomax, for instance.
Yeah.
And I know you like the Dreadnoughts, which are kind of a separate faction from Cobra. But, you also have, and Destro would kind of be a separate faction as well, right? Because he's, wasn't he separate, sort of?
Destro was an arms dealer.
Right.
But he kind of sided himself with Cobra because he had the same kind of vision where they wanted to basically take over the world. So he would supply Cobra Commander with the arms to do it.
Yeah.
Zoltan and his Dreadnoughts they're a bunch of mercenaries, right? All they give a shit about is money.
Yeah.
And of course, Cobra gave them a shitload of money to do a bunch of dirty stuff. So they were, let's do some dirty stuff.
But then you got like Cobra Commander, and then like under pure Cobra, you have like Mindbender, Zaymot, and Tomax, and you have Storm Shadow originally, and of course you have the Foot Soldier Cobra guys, and then you have the Vipers as well. Yep. You have the Bats, which are another form of Foot Soldiers. Yeah. I mean, so I think honestly, I'll ask you, do you think that the team surrounding Cobra Commander is as cool, if not maybe better than Cobra Commander himself, or more interesting? Not better, but more interesting?
Then are we comparing that to Megatron?
No, we're just talking about like Cobra on its own, Cobra as the organization. I don't think Cobra Commander could do it alone. He totally depends on everybody to help him with any scheme or crime.
See, there's different versions of Cobra Commander, and this is where I have a problem with Transformers and with G.I. Joe and everything from the 80s because, they change it in the books, they change it in the animated movies.
Well, let's stick to just animated TV show and maybe the movies, because I think most of our listeners will be able to identify with that.
So he was a coward in the show. He would only put himself in the battle if he knew he was going to win. And at the very first sight of him losing, he would always pull back. He would always throw his minions in front of him to defend himself. That's just the kind of guy he was. Yeah. But his character was just so awesome. He was a very likable villain.
Yeah. And why do you think he was likable? I mean, what made him likable? You pointed to Galvatron, being insane. I like Skeletor because I think he had like huge aspirations and was willing to do the deed himself and use sorcery and wizardry and sacrifice his men to some degree. But what makes Cobra Commander so compelling?
First and foremost, Chris Latta, who voices him,
and Starscream, like you mentioned earlier.
God bless his soul. Yeah, I mean, he's fabulous voice actor. That's the first thing that I love is just his voice. I love just how he thinks he's always going to get away with something, and of course the Joes always foil the day, but I guess that's the way it's written. But he's so dumb that you have to like him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I like it because he's so underhanded.
It's not like, let's take over a territory at a time. It's like, no, let's take over the whole fucking world. It's like, well, man, you can't even take over, the lower floor of the Joe base. Why don't you do one thing at a time, Nope, we got to take over the whole world,
Yeah, take over the world. Why not just, blow up the Joe's base? Focus on that first. You do that, you can probably get the world after you do that. This goes into another question of mine, which is villains, plans, schemes, do they help aid the villain in likability or their overall goal? I mean, you mentioned Cobra Commander's overall goal is, to take over the world, and Skeletor's goal is to get into Castle Grayskull and get the power of Grayskull for himself. Does this ultimate goal or these little plans and schemes to help get to that goal help inform the villain and make him better or likable? I mean, what do you think?
Oh, that's a good one, man. I'm going to have to think about that one.
All right, well, let me ramble on here for a minute. I think, something like I'm going to take over the world is a really vague goal. I mean, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
It gets boring after a while, right?
But that's take over the world for what? What do you want to do with it once you have it? Like, there's no kind of ... There's no ellipsis. There's no, bigger end game. It's just like you just want to acquire something for the sake of acquiring it. And Skeletor and Hordak, they want to take over Etheria or Eternia or, get the powers of Grayskull. Well, what are you going to do with it? Skeletor I can understand a little bit more because he wants the power of Grayskulls for himself, so he can be the best wizard in the in the universe, the most powerful wizard. But even still, what are you going to do with that? I mean, I don't think
the ultimate goal for that, obviously, again with Cobra Commander, to take over the world would be to rule the world. Like, you're the ultimate being. You do anything you want. You command anything you want. I mean, that's the goal. In G.I. Joe, obviously, it's not in fantasy. It's built in, today's Earth and stuff. So it's like, there's only Earth.
But I guess the question is, what can't Cobra Commander do now before he takes over the world that he can do once he takes over the world? Because it seems like he's got unlimited resources and can kind of do whatever he wants. You know what I mean?
You know what? It could be as simple as going to like the Dark Knight. What does Alfred say? Some man just want to watch the world burn.
Right.
I mean, maybe he just thrived on conflict and war, and that's all he wanted to do was just destroy. I know Destro was like that, but I think Cobra Commander would be the kind of guy who would have a golden throne and just be sitting on the top of a golden castle and just with a big scepter and just be looking over at all his slaves, and that's his thing.
Okay, I can see that. All right, so here's another thing for you then. You kind of mentioned the golden throne and stuff. Let's talk about a villain's lair or hideout or the world that they operate in. How much does that add to the character? For me, I mean, I think Snake Mountain is a cooler character and setting for a villain as the villain himself. I mean, Cobra has the Terradome. The Decepticons have had a few different bases. I mean, what do you think? How much does
the Decepticon was their ship that they came to Earth in, and it crashed in the ocean.
Yeah. And then Cybertron.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. For some reason, the only thing that's coming to my mind that's really cool is like Batman's cave or Superman's Fortress of Solitude, but that's not what we're talking about.
No, but I really think that a villain's lair in setting that they make all their plans in, I think it really does kind of inform where their sense of mind is. I mean, you talk about Galvatron being stuck in the mud, for before he's rescued. That's informing every choice that he's making because of his, solitude. Skeletor's stuck in Snake Mountain, a fortress that isn't even his. It used to belong to King Hiss before it got, before King Hiss was banished. And now he's trying to do the same thing as somebody else and failing. I mean, that really informs his character, and that's why he's repeating the failure. I really think that there's something there, and I know we're really kind of only touching on the same kind of three shows, Joe's, Transformers, and He-Man.
Yeah.
We can even talk about Thundercats a bit for all the T-Cat fans out there. I mean, Mumra, same kind of thing, I think there's a lot of parallels between Thundercats and He-Man, so...
The Thundercats I'm a little weak on. I had all the toys, collected all this stuff, but I mean, I haven't watched those shows in a long, long time, so you're going to have to take that one, I'm afraid.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty weak on it, too. I always preferred He-Man to it, and I found that the animation was a lot weaker in Thundercats. There's a lot of people love it, and, all the power to them. But, it's Mumra, who's the villain, and his kind of henchman versus, Lino and his good guy buddies against the same thing, and they each had their own, fortress, so to speak. But I really think that the setting really does, a cool base is always cool. That's what it comes down to. And
let me ask you something.
Sure.
Why did He-Man and his buddies just not go into Snake Mountain? Did they not know where it is?
No, they definitely knew where it is, because I mean, there's several episodes where somebody would get captured and they would go over there and free them and stuff. I think It was more like, well, Eternia is divided into the light half and the dark half, and there's a whole story behind that, and they always just stuck to the light half because the dark half was a barren wasteland and there was no reason to go there. I mean, it's always the obvious question: why not just blow up the Joe's base? Why not just go into Snake Mountain and imprison everybody?
Well, I think for not necessarily the Joes, for Cobra, it was always hidden. For the Decepticons, it was always hidden. But Snake Mountain, it's a Snake Mountain. I mean, there it is. Let's get that thing,
I think it's the case of going into enemy territory, and in He-Man, it really feels like there's that the bad guys are going to be more prevalent there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have the stats to prove that off. And every time He-Man had to go rescue somebody, of course, he was successful.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could make lots of like logical kind of questions about a universe like He-Man, like that. So why Snake Mountain wasn't hidden, I don't know. They use that same technique in She-Ra. The Horde is ruling the planet, but the rebellion is hidden in the Whispering Woods, so they could never just go stop the rebels. So obviously the creators of He-Man and She-Ra learned from that, probably thinking the same thing. Here's another question for you though.
Sure.
Let's talk about the villain's origin story. How important does that play into liking the villain? We talk about Galvatron being basically transformed by Unicron. Is that an integral element to liking the character? And maybe there are some villains out there we don't know where they came from. I'm gonna go back to Skeletor. We got in 2002 the origin of Skeletor.
Okay, so Galvatron's origin was based in the movie, so we'll have to talk about the movie a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's cool. I was never a fan of seeing Megatron go away.
Yeah.
I really liked how him and Prime beat the fuck out of each other, and they're both pretty much dead. I mean, fanboys are going to argue about this forever. I don't think any one of them won. Prime died on the operating table. Megatron would have died in space. They were both dead.
Yeah, they both walked off the battlefield, but the clock was ticking on both of them.
Yeah, it was a totally even fight. And then Unicron comes and says, "Destroy the Matrix, and I'll, essentially grant you 3 wishes." That kind of thing. So I liked it up until a point where where Unicron kept, he kept going into Galvatron's mind in the movie and saying, taking over his mind. He'd be like, "Destroy Ultra Magnus and all this," and he'd be like, "Yes, master," and he would drop to his knees like he couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately Unicron was controlling him. I didn't like that. I do like how Galvatron was more of a, shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy, where Megatron was more sinister, but Galvatron was just more brutal. Like he killed you if he didn't like you. Even in the TV show, man, I can't tell you how many like the Scourge or the sweeps that he just shot because he got pissed off.
Right.
I like that about him. I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and Hordak was similar in a lot of, especially the 2000X cartoon, the He-Man reboot cartoon that came out turn of the century. There's a couple episodes with Hordak, and one there's a flashback where Hordak just kills somebody who questions him without thinking about it, and it's fucking great. He just destroys them without thinking about it, and nobody says anything about it because they know that'd be next. Okay, you talk about Galvatron's origin. Let's go to the other movie, from the same kind of series creator, G.I. Joe, and Cobra Commander's origin.
Yeah, again, man. I mean, Cobra Commander has had several different origins. We're sticking to the TV, so we have to go with the movie, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He was a scientist for an organization called Cobra Law. He got mutated and became like this snake. I think it's stupid.
It's pretty weak. Yeah, it's definitely pretty weak. I mean,
I like the comic book origins where Cobra Commander, he was a badass dictator and a soldier. I like that.
Kind of like Doctor Doom.
Yeah, he didn't need to be a snake man or anything like that. But, I mean, I get the whole Cobra Law thing. And what the fuck was Burgess Meredith doing in that movie? Anyway, that's another story.
Okay, so, I mean, you touched on something huge there. I mean, they built up Cobra Commander, with this veil and with this face shield. And then they essentially kind of destroyed all the mystique that they built up, and it really lessened the character. When you find out that he's just this ordinary scientist that gets mutated, it's fucking depressing because you're hoping that there's something cool there. I mean, you never see his face, and then you get this.
But he's not. He's not. If you look at the footage in the movie,
but then he turns into a snake.
No, but I think he's bald and he's not human looking.
No, that's for sure.
When he has his hood on before the movie came out, like if you look at the close up of his eyes, he's a human. Like he has human eyes.
Yep.
You could see the white flesh behind him. And then in the movie, it kind of contradicted all that, where they made him this weird scientist. And again, I don't even know what species he was supposed to be, but they kind of just took everything and just threw it away, which is a huge problem I have with G.I. Joe. Like that movie, in some ways, is just, I wish it was never made. I mean, there's a lot of cool shit in it. It's a very adult, Duke dies or gets the the heart, the arrow in the heart, and all that stuff. But there's so many contradictions in that movie.
Well, I mean, I touched on how I love Skeletor's origin, and we can get into that. The brief version of it is he was fighting King Randor for the throne of Eternia. They're brothers. He tries to throw something at Randor. Randor has a shield, and it backfires and splashes all over him. He's about to die, and it was Hordak who saved him to give him this other life. He transformed into Skeletor. It's a pretty cool origin, but honestly, man, going back to Joe, my favorite origin, and this won't surprise you, is Serpentor.
Yeah.
I mean, the DNA science is relatively new in the 80s, I think, and now Dr. Mindbender, and of course the movie destroyed all this, but he combines the DNA of the world's greatest warriors and kind of villains of all time. It was Genghis Khan, Vlad Tepes, and
the evil dictators and conquerors of the time, like Napoleon Bonaparte and all that stuff. It was like Serpentor was the ultimate badass. I'm surprised. I know they couldn't, but I'm surprised they didn't say steal Hitler's DNA too. Like this guy was a badass.
Yeah.
And then again, the movie came out, and then they had another badass, which was Globulus, Burgess Meredith, and he was even better. And then they made Serpentor just look like a chump.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I get where you're going. Like Serpentor, I think was obviously overall a superior leader, but he just didn't have the same kind of personality Cobra Commander did. He just wasn't as likable.
No, but I think that's exactly the point. I mean, I think he's very much like Hot Rod in that point. He's, and I'll get to how the comparison in a second. Serpentor was like a better creation, but he didn't have the character. Like Hot Rod was, promoted to leader, but he wasn't the leader that Prime was, but he could do the role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. I think Judd Nelson was Hot Rod. Hot Rod was a great character, and you don't get to see him much. I know we're talking about villains, but I gotta do a shout out to Hot Rod.
We're gonna take a break soon, and we'll talk about heroes, so we can touch on Hot Rod then. But let's stick to villains for the time being.
For sure.
Cheers. I only got two more things I want to talk about villain wise. Let's talk villain weapons. Signature weapons that villains use. Anything that comes to mind?
Honestly, if we're talking cartoons we used to dig, the first thing that pops into my mind is Skeletor's staff.
The Havoc staff, yeah.
And I don't know if they showed a lot of this in the TV show, but he had half of the sword, right?
Yeah, that was more of the comic book, the mini comic book, and the action figures. The fact that the action figure said, He-Man had half and Skeletor had half, and only when the two halves combined would you be able to get into Grayskull. That was the mini comic story. Yeah,
that was, I would say, Skeletor's staff. Actually, Megatron's fucking arm cannon was pretty sweet too.
Yeah, and even when Megatron transformed into the gun, that's pretty iconic. And Galvatron, for that matter.
Yeah, Galvatron was like a futuristic cannon, and Megatron was Megatron, like a World War II Luger or something like that?
I don't know. It was almost like a handheld sniper rifle because it had a scope on it and everything.
Yeah, maybe it's like a Perfect Dark kind of hand pistol or something.
Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to judge scale because the Autobots and Decepticons are so much bigger than the humans in the show. But
yeah,
I mean, I think a villain's choice of weapons, and I think. Probably if we were to venture into comic book territory, they probably capitalize this on the best, where every villain or hero, for that matter, has their own unique weapon set. But as far as Joe's, Transformers, He-Man, even Mask, I mean, we could talk about Mask. I mean, the way that they use their vehicles and actual masks to transform and do stuff.
That was cool. Each mask had its own power.
I'm surprised that's not a fucking movie by now. I mean, tell me that's not a fucking series that's dying to be, rebooted.
Well, the thing is, how the G.I. Joe cartoon had the PSAs at the end of it, which are hilarious. The whole, if you go back and you watch those old Mask episodes, as much as the idea of Mask is great, they are so cheesy.
But that's what I mean. You could reboot that and make it really fucking cool.
The whole, yeah, I agree, but the whole Mask episode is a PSA. It's just completely cheesy. The villains are so stereotyped. It is silly, and which sucks because I really dug that series, man. And I think they could have done a sweet reboot and made it a little more adult, you know.
Well, they tried a reboot mid run of Mask, and they turned it into like a speed racer NASCAR thing, which was fucking horrible.
That was the whole, like, they took like the Mad Max approach where, like, you know, gasoline was king, and like whoever had the fastest hot rod was like the winner, and it was just stupid, man.
So, I mean, we've been touching on the verge of it and going back and forth. The last question I want to talk about villains with you, then we'll take a short break and maybe do all these same kind of questions on the hero side of things.
Sure.
Going in depth. Is, you know, can a villain be that much better than his nemesis? Or, you know, does it only work when a villain is as equal as the hero?
I think, I really think I nailed it earlier when I talked about, again, the Transformers movie when Megatron and Prime fought. It was all these years coming, and they fought. And it is like He-Man and Skeletor, where they're equal. And Optimus and Megatron are equal. It's like they basically killed each other.
So
there would be no winner. Like, they're both equal. You know, you can't have one without the other kind of thing.
So do you think that you can have a villain that is better, like stronger than a hero, and that a hero has to rely on more than just himself? Or do you think that a great villain can only be an equal to a hero?
No, because look at Lex Luthor. He's just a human.
Well, you know, that's just it. But, you know, how come he is such an iconic villain to Superman? And again, we're going into comic book territory here, but, you know, fuck it. I mean, this is a really good kind of counterpoint.
You kind of have to, right?
Yeah. I mean, because I find Joker and Batman, you know, dead equals. I mean, that's probably the best rival of all time, hands down. Maybe fucking Spider-Man, Green Goblin can approach that edge.
No, not even close, man, in my opinion. Batman and Joker, like, I don't care if you like Marvel or you like DC or you like Image or whatever you like. Batman and Joker, when you think about two guys going at it, it's those two. I'm sorry, like Superman and Lex Luthor is great, but if Lex Luthor doesn't have kryptonite, you know, Superman is just gonna punch his head off. Like, that's not a fight. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I guess what they're trying to do with that is, you know, Luthor's intellect versus all of Superman's powers.
Yeah. But getting back to Joker versus Batman, the comics are great, obviously, but I love The Dark Knight. Like everybody else, just the end fight, how it was so simple. You know what I mean? There was no like the moves weren't fixed. It was just like, you know, Joker had a dirty knife and he tried to stab Batman with it, and that was it. You know, and Joker had a couple dogs. Like, it's you can relate to it because it's a human versus a human, and it's, you know, two freaks going at each other, and they're freaks for their own reasons. I just think that's the ultimate, you know, good versus evil, I would say.
Well, okay, I'll raise you one up and go beyond maybe the cartoon realm, since we went.
Not fair. You didn't. No. You can't do that.
Well, you went into superhero territory, and I said let's stay away from Marvel DC.
I knew this was a trap. I knew this.
There's no fucking trap here.
I knew it was a trap. All right, fucking bring it. Let's do it.
I'll raise you one up and go like fucking Luke Vader or like Emperor Darth Maul.
Talk to me about Star Wars. Don't get going on this shit. I would have said that right from the fucking beginning, man.
All right, well, let's take an opportunity to take a break, grab a few more beverages. We'll revisit this and we'll come back. We'll be with you in just 1 or 2 moments.
Hey, this is Mike the Greek of Joystick Judgment Day, and you're listening to the Wired In Network.
Hey guys, my name's Jedi J, and this is The Arcade. Every week we'll be bringing you roundtable discussions and all things in the world of video games. From Super Mario Bros. To the World of Warcraft. The Wired In Network presents The Arcade, every Tuesday on iTunes and Stitcher.
All right, we're back, and we're going to continue this little discussion here. We've been talking about what makes a villain a good villain, and we've come across a bunch of different ideas as we break down some of the most memorable cartoon villains, although the scope of that conversation has kind of got off the rails a little bit, and we left the last segment with villains being on equal footing or not equal footing with the heroes and stuff like that. So I was going to ask Jay about Star Wars specifically. Is there equal footing in that arena? Because I guess we could talk about Clone Wars being a cartoon. We're talking Jedi versus Sith, because there's always only 2 Sith or something like that, but there's a million Jedi that all die when stormtroopers, blast them all of a sudden. So.
Oh, buddy, how long do you want this show? Because I could talk for hours.
Oh, buddy, you talk for hours.
The rule of 2 was made by Darth Bane. That was a while ago. But
Darth Bane,
and please, I don't want to talk about the Clone Wars. Please don't make me talk about the Clone Wars.
Okay, so let's just talk about general. You know what? This is what I think it comes down to. Let's sum up the villains for a bit, and then we'll talk about heroes.
Let's do it.
I think a villain has to be memorable. I think he's got to have something like a strong hook to him. Vader has that breathing apparatus that's just so memorable, the way it sounds and the way that he deals with people. Galvatron will finish people off if they look at him the wrong way. Not even disagree with him, but just look at him the wrong way or look at him with the way that they don't like.
What are you bringing up Vader again for? It's a movie.
I'm talking about villains in general.
All right.
Is that okay? Do I got your permission to continue?
Hey, man, it's your fucking show. Go ahead.
Hordak and Skeletor, they got their own things going. They're both memorable. Hordak, he can transform into anything. If that's not memorable, I don't know what is. Skeletor, he's the weaselly kind of whiny types along the lines of Cobra Commander, who has, aspirations of world domination. And all that makes all these guys memorable. They all have a unique look to them. Cobra Commander's got the veil and the face shield. Skeletor's head is a fucking skull, and he's got the Havoc staff, which stands out 100% every time you see it. It's just memorable looks, memorable characters, and again, we talked about henchmen and team members that surround these guys, and that's just as good. Why are you shaking your head?
There's no argument here. Like you're talking,
I'm summing it up. This is summation.
The only villain that matters, and you had to bring Star Wars into it, man. I'm sorry. Darth Vader is he's the ultimate. He has everything.
He's such a fucking weak villain. I'm so sick of fucking surveys and polls saying that he's the best villain ever. Like, he's not that badass. He is such a passive character. He sits there and all he does is whine. Can I do this? Can I do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? He is so passive and just so sick of it.
No. What? He was the ultimate good at doing what he thought was the right decision. He was trying to save the woman he loved.
Oh, so you're talking about like new school bootleg Darth Vader before the suit, right?
I'm talking Darth Vader. I'm not going into books. I'm not going into
you're talking Hayden Christensen getting down on one knee and the Emperor in the new trilogy saying, "Rise, Darth Vader."
Can I finish my fucking point?
No, you can't. This is the great debate, and I've got 2 minutes on my own.
Where's J-Rock? I need a mediator. Okay, look. Yes, I'm talking about all 6 movies. I'm not talking about books. I'm not talking about anything else but the movies. I don't care if you like Hayden Christensen. I don't give a Christensen. There's the beer going right there. Woo! Hayden Christensen. I don't care if you like him or not. He's still Anakin Skywalker who becomes Darth Vader. Okay. He's doing what he thinks is the right decision. He's going under this mentor that knows these dark sorcery powers to help him save the woman he loves. Now, if that is not the coolest fucking thing, I don't know what is. It's way cooler than fucking Skeletor's motives. What are his motives anyway?
Power of Grayskull and take over the throne that was stolen from him by his brother because his parents didn't think he was good enough for it. He was jousted out of his throne, but for no reason at all.
Or a guy who falls to the dark side because of love. Something he's...
No, he chose the dark side. He didn't fall to the dark side. He made a stupid fucking decision.
He was seduced by Palpatine.
He chose.
Such an opera. Palpatine told him the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise and all that shit. And
he
chose.
Like,
oh, that sounds pretty cool.
No. Okay, maybe you haven't seen... Have you seen Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith? Have you seen that movie?
No.
I didn't think so because your conversation indicates that you haven't seen it whatsoever because he discovers that the Chancellor is the Dark Lord of the Sith, and he has a chance when his lightsaber is drawn to kill him.
Man. I'm talking
Let me finish. That's 10 demerits. That's
Before.
10 demerits. He
Fuck,
knows
dude,
who
this
the Dark
bullshit,
Lord
this
of the
is
Sith
bullshit.
is. He has a chance to strike him down, and he doesn't. He chooses not to.
After. This is fucking after. I'm talking about when he's sitting at the opera or whatever the fucking art show they're watching with Palpatine. He's like, hey, have you ever heard the story of how I can bring people back to life?
Hey, buddy, have you ever heard my zombie story? Let me tell you how I can bring people back to life. I tell you, it's a real hit. Why don't you watch these floating balls of energy, and I'll tell you about zombies. Come on.
And you know what? I'm fucking pissed that Shane is dead in Walking Dead. I just want to fucking throw that out there. I'm still fucking mad. Anyway, so
Another great villain.
he's like, oh, Shane's amazing. He does this, and he's like, he thinks he's doing it right. Then Palpatine seduces him. He's like, oh, you know what? Now let's just make this complete. I'll finish teaching you how to save your wife if you go kill all the Jedi. And he's like, okay. And he does it.
No, but
How
he's
fucking cool is
choosing.
that?
He's choosing all this, man. You know what?
It's seduction.
If you say that it's seduction, it makes him a weaker character because it's a passive decision and not an active choice. If he's seduced by it, then it's out of his control, and that is weak, man. That is fucking weak.
He believes, man, after he couldn't save his mother, he kept having forced.
Oh, what's the matter? Did you get a little scared? Oh, did Mama die in the desert? Oh.
Drop the comedy act, Cowardly Lion. But he keeps having these visions of his mom. He goes to Tatooine. I gotta go. He can't save her. She's already been fucked up by the fucking Tusken Raiders. Okay? Now he's having visions of Padme dying in childbirth. Well, I don't want this to fucking repeat again. So he goes to the dirty old wizard who fucking knows the secret. He doesn't give a fuck about.
And you mean the visions that we had never seen in any other Star Wars film before, right?
Oh, that was horrible, by the way. Yeah, I agree with that.
And so that came out of nowhere. Okay.
I'm just saying, though, as a story, forget about the filmmaking.
Forget about the character who had never, showed visions to the audience before.
Well, I blame Father Lucas for that, but we'll forgive him. He's okay.
Papa Lucas. Okay.
Papa Lucas.
I don't think Vader's the ultimate villain. I'm gonna have to disagree. We can agree to disagree.
No.
I like Darth Maul. I think Darth Maul is the best villain ever created. I think Darth Maul has the best dialogue ever written. I think Darth Maul is the best looking and the best coolest villain. I think he should have his own vehicle. Should be the Maulmobile.
See, what you're doing is overpowering me with your loud voice. I'm not even done making my point yet.
And just like Anakin Skywalker, I'm seducing you because you're just saying yes, well, Lord Rob McCallum.
It's your show, and I have a show on your network, and I don't want to get canned, so I have to kind of listen to what you say.
Oh, that's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Okay, so anyway, then he gets all fucked up fighting.
No, we're done. We're good. We're good. You love him. I don't love him. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You need a hug.
He fights his mentor.
Oh my god. Okay. You know what? We're gonna need
like 25 minutes.
Yeah, and you know how many pages it was on the script? It was like one line. George admittedly said, I finished the draft, and the final fight. It's a lot of they fight because it doesn't really matter. So it just says they fight.
Come on, dude. That is the greatest sword fight in all of film. What is better than that fucking fight? It's amazing.
Errol Flynn's Robin Hood.
I've never seen it.
Well,
fucking film student.
Because you haven't seen it, obviously it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Errol Flynn Robin Hood. You're being a hipster. You're a fucking hipster, buddy.
I'm a film hipster. Leave me alone.
You are. You're a snob.
No, there's a difference between hipsters and snobs. Okay.
I'm getting upset. I'm getting fucking sweaty. I need a beer. So you know what?
Let's take a break, and then we'll finally transition to heroes. We tried to wrap up the villains. I was trying to sum up what we thought based on what we had talked about for a half hour, and all it did was get you hot and bothered. And you got this weird thing on your neck that I don't know where it came from, but it's growing larger, and you need something to cool it down. So we'll be back in a minute.
Hey, what's up, Wired In Nation? Your boy J-Rock here, and...
What a failure introduction. And I'm Rob, but we're together. Just the two of us.
That's nothing new if you listen to the show.
But that's what we're talking about. The show.
The show.
Which comes on when?
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday on the Wired In Network. You get to hear these two idiots
Talk about movies and TV and whatever else we feel like talking about that day.
generally whatever. See, the formula is simple. We show up, we record for an hour, we caffeinate ourselves beyond, legal limits, and we just talk about whatever comes out of our mouth.
I was going to say, there's not really a formula, is there?
Well, there is a structure.
Structure. So the formula would be the Joe over here piping in this cup.
But it's a recipe for success.
Little Java.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not script.
No, certainly not scripted.
No.
And certainly no homework done.
Yeah, I never do any homework. You kind of do a little bit, but I kind of throw that right off the cliff.
Along with your opinion. And so everybody, just listen into the show every Thursday here on the Wired In Network.
Available on iTunes and Stitcher.
And many more to come.
By the power of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. I am She-Ra.
This looks like double trouble.
All right, we're back again. Now maybe we can at this time move on to fucking heroes. I think Jedi J's finally had a chance to come down here, and I can't emphasize Jedi enough on that last one. And that's fair. We went outside of territory, and we dared to mention the sacrilege Star Wars. We'll try to avoid that going forward.
That's right.
Holy fuck.
Sacred ground.
So let's talk about heroes, and let's start with Luke Skywalker. No, I'm just kidding. No.
What are you doing?
Okay, so what makes a good hero? I mean, what heroes stand out in your mind that you think of best? And we're trying to stick to cartoon heroes that aren't comic book related. But what sticks out in your mind? I mean, we can stick with the same shows if you want.
Doing what's right, nobility, doing the right thing, sacrificing themselves.
Bringing in Star Trek to this one then, huh? Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or one?
You fucking hawk Trek on this shit. I'm hanging up. This is bull. I don't want to talk about that shit.
Fuck you. Captain Kirk is better than Luke Skywalker any day of the week.
Oh, you're so right. You know what? The first name that pops in my head is Superman. And I know we're not supposed to talk about comics, but the ultimate hero, the first thing that pops up. What do you think of the first thing that pops in your head?
He-Man.
Okay, Superman. Same dude, pretty much.
No, they're totally different.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
He-Man's not a fucking alien, okay? He's not an alien living in a fucking world that he doesn't understand and that he struggles for acceptance in. He-Man fucking gets powers from a magical sword that's handed down by generations of people. Superman gets his powers from the fucking sun. He got lucky when he landed on a fucking planet that gave it to him.
Jeez. Okay, so my hero of choice...
Other than those fucking critical details, I'm sure they're the same.
Mr. Angry.
Not angry, I'm just fucking pointing out the obvious.
My hero of choice would be...
Luke Skywalker.
Optimus Prime.
Prime. So Prime is your ideal hero, and because he's noble and he's a good guy, or what?
Yeah, and he obviously sacrifices himself time and again to save his people, the Autobots, to save the humans, which he doesn't really owe anything to. He just, I don't know, he keeps wanting to protect them for some stupid reason.
And let's talk about, maybe Prime's most critical act. I'm going to the movie for this one.
Sure.
The passing of the Matrix.
All right.
He wants to pass it to Ultra Magnus, his old friend, but because he's a little cripple, he drops it, and Magnus, being too old, can't bend down to pick it up. So Rodimus, Mr. Johnny on the spot, grabs it, and he's the big fucking hero.
I think Prime's decision to pass the Matrix of Leadership on to Ultra Magnus was, on paper, it looked good.
No, fail.
No, he was.
You think it looked good because they look similar? Their heads look similar.
Well, he was the same make, but what I'm saying is that on paper, to Prime, Ultra Magnus looked good. he was.
So
he was
Prime only cares about numbers and what looks good on paper. That's the mark of a good leader. Somebody who
What
just
do you-
looks at paper, not
so
character.
It's a fucking Hot Rod. The fucking Judd Nelson, the same
No,
character.
no,
He
no.
wasn't.
You want to know who he should have given it to? He should have given the Matrix of Leadership to fucking Wheelie, Perceptor, or Blaster.
Any of the new toys that needed selling. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I know.
Yeah, Perceptor would have been a good choice because he could fight.
Well, you don't need to fight if you're just telling people to go do your little dirty jobs.
Blaster, come on, DJ Nowhere. And that was the other Wheelie, that little. What was he? A girl?
Weezy.
Yeah, he was a fucking headache to listen to. Who the fuck is that Autobot?
Well, fair
That's
enough.
what
Fair enough. Maybe Grimlock should have got it.
I would have given it to Grimlock over those three fucking fails. Well, unfortunately, all the old schools I would have picked, like Wheeljack or Jazz, they all got their fucking heads off. Yeah, so.
All the cool guys got killed in the first 20 minutes of that movie. Fucking Heroes had it tough.
On a side note, I think you and I actually went to that movie together. That's how old we are. You know, you watch the cartoon and it's, you know, they get shot in the shoulder. You know, they get hurt a little bit. You go to the movie, they all get fucking killed, and they all get killed brutally. You see them on the ground with their heads ripped off and shit. Like, oh my god, that's like Wheeljack. I just spent 4 years watching him. Now he's fucking dead in like a second.
Was it Wreck-Gar? No, it wasn't Wreck-Gar. It was maybe it was Wheeljack or Jazz that gets shot by Megatron in the shuttle. No, it was Ironhide who gets shot by Megatron in the shuttle, and you see the smoke come out of his mouth.
Ironhide and Ratchet.
Is Ratchet then? Ratchet
both
got
get it pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and the smoke comes out of your mouth. That's fucking haunting, man. You see their eyes change color and smoke comes out of their mouth? Fuck.
Yeah, and then Ironhide, who's again one of Prime's right-hand men over the years,
Voiced by the same actor.
same actor, and fucking Megatron points the cannon at his head and just boom. It's just like, holy shit, man! Like this is a serious movie.
The only problem with that is, how come it never happened in the show like that? Like, how come Megatron had transformed in the gun before and hit people, but it was never that serious, and all of a sudden, now it's serious?
There's a lot of different theories to this that I've read.
Other than the theory that we need new toys and new characters to market and sell.
Well, exactly. That's number one. Is that they needed to push the new toys. You know, out with the old toys. They didn't produce it anymore. Now you got to buy, like you said, Wheelie, Blaster. Well, not Perceptor, but Ultra Magnus was a new guy. Hot Rod was a new guy. That was the
Yeah,
big
and you know
main
what
thing.
the fuck is with that? You know, it is to you, Ultra Magnus, my old friend. Fuck you, old friend. I've seen you for about 3 minutes on the fucking screen. Where is this relationship, and how long have you been on Earth?
No, I correct you, my friend, because I believe 1988 or 87 or 88 was the TV show, and then the movie.
No. The show came out in '84,
Okay, but
and the movie
I'm
came out
just
in
saying-
'85.
I'm just saying that's true, but the movie takes place in 2005, where the show takes place in like that mid 80s section there. So you don't know what happened for that last 20 years.
But why would you fucking leave that to chance? Like, what I'm saying is, don't say stuff like "old friend."
we
and
gotta
not
have
fill
a
in the
backstory
gaps.
to the new guy? You can't just
No.
like.
And I guess the other thing that bothered
What do
me
you
is
know?
fucking Autobot City. You know, no.
Metroplex?
Well, no, is it Metroplex though? There's Autobot City and there is Metroplex.
Yeah.
You know, because there's like in post movie world,
Yeah.
there's several Autobot stations on the planet. You
Yeah.
know, there's Metroplex, there's Autobot City, and there's of course our favorite, Omega Supreme.
Omega's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah.
But I think we are getting a little off topic here.
No, we're talking about best heroes, and we're criticizing Optimus Prime's decision to pass on the Autobot Matrix of leadership, you know, which defines essentially the main character. You know, and I'm criticizing you because you said you're the best hero in your mind is Optimus Prime, and I gotta say his final act is horrible.
What about the things of heroism he did when he was alive? Like, who cares?
All
if he,
erased with that last act.
But his choice to pass the Matrix, whether you like the character he passed it to or not, doesn't really matter.
It matters to me.
It's what he did when he was alive. And by the way, he did come back to life as well.
Oh, I know. In that stupid little Autobot graveyard where he couldn't control himself, and Hot Rod was Rodimus was turned back to Hot Rod for a brief second. Yada yada yay.
That was pretty cool, man.
That was cool. But you were stoked, and that was just to sell a fucking gray version of Optimus Prime.
No such thing exists.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it, Jay?
Does it?
Doesn't it?
Does it?
I don't know.
This fucking show's going nowhere fast.
Okay, so, I mean, you mentioned Superman. I'll talk about fucking He-Man for a second.
Let's do it.
Huge fan of He-Man. This guy always puts everybody else above himself. He'll totally sacrifice himself no matter what. Not sure if that's always the best act. Of course, his powers come from, the powers of Grayskull, regardless of the series that you watch. There's been 3 of them. He's willing to sacrifice himself for no matter what. The great thing about He-Man has always been his dual persona with Prince Adam. And it's interesting because there's been a split persona where, He-Man knows of Prince Adam and Prince Adam knows of He-Man. They're one and the same, but they talk about each other as being separate things. I mean, what do you think about that?
Honestly,
oh, fuck.
I think it's the most fucking stupid thing since Superman and Clark Kent. He has the same fucking haircut. And He-Man's not even wearing a pair of glasses. Like, it's Teela and Man-at-Arms. Oh, wait.
Man-at-Arms knows, Orko knows, and the Sorceress. Only 3 others know of the secret powers.
Teela doesn't know that the dude with the same fucking Conan haircut.
Yeah, but they're different colors. He-Man has orange hair. Prince Adam has yellow. It's just in style.
It's the same. He's got like a... Well, it's actually a pretty sweet, like, Liam Gallagher haircut he's going on. But I'm just saying.
Cheers.
Do you not know that that's the same guy? He's got fucking muscles coming out of his ass.
No. Prince Adam doesn't really have that much muscles, and he's kind of lazy, and he wears a little pink vest, and,
Yeah, where can I get a pink vest like that? They're very... All their clothes are very form-fitting. I like that. They're very tight. All the superhero stuff. Where do you get that shit?
I don't know. Not too sure. But, I mean... He-Man's my choice. I mean, I really can't go into depth too much. I mean, Castle Grayskull is a great location for him to kind of hang out, his little base. You mentioned Superman's Fortress of Solitude, Batman in the Batcave. Prime doesn't really have, Optimus Prime doesn't really have a cool kind of base. It was the down ship and maybe Cybertron.
He has the Ark that's crashed in the mountain. Yeah. Not so cool. Not so cool. I will agree with you there.
And, talking about, weapons, Superman's got all his cool powers and stuff, and they're all very iconic. His flight, his speed, his laser vision, and his cold breath. He-Man's got his sword and his strength, of course. Prime, he's got his little cool gun, and he can transform.
He also has his axe hand. Remember that? One of the first episodes?
Yeah, his axe hand. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what?
I'm just trying to think about the weapons that matter, because we talked about that on the villains.
I know you've tricked me into some kind of debate. I know you have.
It's not well, this is the great debate.
It's fine.
This is the great debate. This is the laid-back version.
I thought it was the light side version. I don't want to...
It is.
I don't need this pressure in my life. Anyway, Prime doesn't need to rely on gadgets and any of that kind of stuff. I think his character just shines through.
All right, let's talk about sidekicks or associates of the heroes. Go ahead, Prime. Let's talk about some of the main guys that he relies on. You can talk about G1 or G2.
Magnus, you don't like him. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, but before the fucking movie. Like, seriously.
His sidekicks, well, he had Wheeljack, he had Jazz, he had Huffer, Ironhide. Ironhide's a tough motherfucker. That was like his... I don't know about his bodyguard, but his right-hand dude. He had the Dinobots. Man, a lot of cool personalities. Cliff Jumper, Casey Kasem. Come on, man.
Yeah. Didn't Casey Kasem do Jazz as well? No, that was somebody else.
Jazz was Scatman Crothers.
That's what I was thinking, yes. Yeah. And the Micro Machines guy did Blur, which is, of course, movie style.
Oh, movie, yeah. Who else did he have? He had Springer. Springer is just like a badass.
He was a Decepticon at one point.
Yeah,
Decepticon. Cool. Yeah, and I mean, I think He-Man has some equally cool guys. I mean, there's some guys that you can question. I mean, the 80s, and I was talking to my other buddy, Jordan, who, of course, the thing that he hated about 80s cartoons were the fucking goofy sidekicks that drove him nuts. In He-Man, it was Orko. In Thundercats, it was Snarf.
Orko never bothered me. I didn't like many of He-Man's. Like, I liked Man-at-Arms. I liked Teela.
Ram Man?
Yeah, I did. Ram Man's a dope. And then you got stupid people like Fisto.
Mechanic?
Jeez. Mechanic?
Mechanic.
Get the fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like this is ridiculous. You think Ultra Magnus is a bad character?
Lizard Man?
Mechanic.
Don't you remember Lizard Man or Moss Man or Buzz Off or Stratos?
Oh, actually, Stratos wasn't Stratos like tied to Grayskull somehow?
No. You're thinking of Zodak.
Oh, Zodak. Zodak was cool, man. I liked him.
And the Sorceress. Roboto.
Yeah, the majority of the guys I just named are pretty lame. Like Skeletor's guys, I think the guys I named earlier, they're just lame. I don't know. They don't do the hero justice.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned Mechanic because in the 2000X show, they did a whole episode on Mechanic's lament where he looked around at all the other masters. They called the good guys the masters. He's like, why do people need me? All I have is a long neck. And it was a whole episode dedicated to why he was integral. It was hilarious.
That's great. And then everyone picked up their Mechanic toy and like, why the fuck did I buy this?
And even at the end of the episode, it was like, why are you integral to the fucking masters?
But it's just like he's the one guy, you know, when we used to play with our He-Man guys, he was the one guy that nobody ever fucking picked Mechanic, man. You gave it to the kid you didn't like at the street. Here, use this fucking guy, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk hero origin stories. You know, do we have an origin for Optimus Prime or Duke from G.I. Joe?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here.
I mean, I'm gonna guess that Prime was handed the Autobot Matrix of leadership by, God, I forget the guy's name. I know, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy before him. Oh God, it's gonna drive me nuts.
Optimus Prime was once called Orion Pax. He was given the Matrix by Vector Sigma, I think it was.
Okay, I'll go with it for now.
I think. I'm sure.
Wilder Nation, feel free to correct us on Facebook or on Twitter.
Yeah. The beers are starting to fog the memory here. Why don't we talk about Luke Skywalker?
No, I'm good. Duke, I mean, do you have any origin story for Duke? Was he like a Marine or a corporal that was drafted into G.I. Joe? How did he get affiliated or Flint?
I'm sorry, my friend. My love for G.I. Joe does not go to the hero side. I find most of them quite irritating.
Well, let's talk about the one interesting hero side about Joe that you can get behind, Storm Shadow.
There's Storm Shadow, yeah.
Because he was Cobra, then he went Joe.
Then he went Cobra in the.
Then he went Joe.
He went back to Cobra in the Image comic. I don't know
because
where
they wanted to sell books.
Yeah, I don't know how you can flip flop back and forth like that. He was definitely cooler as a villain. As a Joe, he was just even his toy didn't look like the classic.
There was
Storm
two
Shadow.
Joe toys.
The classic Storm Shadow Cobra. What was that?
What was what?
What was the typical like 80s ninja with the big red Cobra symbol on his white suit, and then the Joe one was like kind of like this. He had like
he was almost Jedi-like.
What's that?
He was almost Jedi-like, but he was like wearing like a white hood with like camo green stripes on him.
Yeah, but he had like that digital camo. It just looked really terrible. And he had like the hunter bow like Rambo has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was the new version where he was black and white and actually had tassels on the belt. Had some pretty cool swords when they re-released all those ninja figures like Tabang and Nunchuck and I don't know.
One Joe actually that just came to my mind. I do like.
Snake
and again,
Eyes.
What's that?
Don't you love Snake Eyes and Quick Kick and Tunnel Rat?
Not as much as I like Lieutenant Falcon. I loved Falcon.
So that means you like Sergeant Slaughter then?
No, I just like Don Johnson.
All right.
No, Falcon was great because he was that fish out of water, pretty boy, who came from a rich family, and you know he just hung around the Joe base and he flirted with Jinx. You know she was the good ninja.
He flirted with everybody.
Yeah, he was like the ladies guy, and he didn't want to do a lot of work, and then he turned out to be one of the big heroes in the movie. I really like Falcon actually, so there's one.
But you mean again, you're talking about things that when we first started the show, we talked about character and what made some of the villains great. You know, there's some fucking cool character stuff going on with Falcon there, whereas Duke is fucking pretty vanilla. Even Superman, you know, is pretty vanilla. You got the complicated fish out of water syndrome for him. He-Man is pretty fucking vanilla unless you get into the scenario where, why does Prince Adam have to turn into He-Man? Because, his parents hate fucking Prince Adam, but they love He-Man. That's the only real character stuff that gets into. Optimus Prime doesn't really have any character development or any kind of obstacles as a hero. But Lieutenant Falcon, there's a guy who wants to be good, but he's a fucking dude.
Well, he's a slacker too, right?
Well, he's
Like,
a dude, He's a guy.
Yeah.
He is what he fucking is, and that's okay.
Yeah, Falcon was great. I wish there was more Joes that spoke to me, but I mean, you know me, man. I've always liked the villains better.
The villains are, I think, more appealing to everybody.
They're just more
honest.
interesting, right? I guess it's because we're not like them, right? Like, you wonder what makes a villain, like, again, going back to Heath Ledger there as Joker, like what drives a guy to become like that, and he has absolutely no motive. He just wants to blow up Gotham for no reason, and it's really interesting to see a villain like that.
Well, let's kind of split the difference here a little bit. I'm completely going off page, and this conversation might go nowhere, but let's talk about, like, anti-heroes. Batman could be considered an anti-hero. Punisher, for sure, is an anti-hero.
What's our boundaries here?
Well, whatever. I think we can expand this to whatever. I think you could call bounty hunters anti-heroes because, they would do the right thing if they're paid to do it. Basically, heroes that, make their own set of rules. And to me, the Punisher is kind of the ultimate anti-hero, the most clear definition. What do you think?
Punisher's all right. I'm not a huge fan of him.
But I think you're not a huge fan because he is so in the middle of the gray. He's not hero. He's not villain. You like him because he does what he wants, but there's nothing 100% memorable about him. I think a lot of his gadgets are cool, and he's a soldier that does what he wants, and he's got some high tech gear. But
Man, you want to talk about like the ultimate anti-hero? And again, if we have no boundaries, then I have to say,
sure.
Han Solo for sure is the ultimate.
No, he's not an anti-hero at all.
Yeah, he is, and not in Jedi. He's not because he he falls in love with Leia and all that stuff. But
no,
in Episode 4, oh, absolutely, man. He's a smuggler. He's smuggling. I don't know, spice or whatever he's smuggling. He's hiding from the Empire. He owes gangsters money.
That doesn't make him an anti-hero, though.
He has a hot rod that could break down at any minute. He's hiding out in seedy bars. He's like smuggling Jedis and shit, across.
I don't think just because he's part of the underworld makes him an anti-hero. I think there's a difference. I think an anti-hero is more somebody who is, fighting for what they believe in, or what they believe is the greater good by any means necessary. The end justifies the means. Batman and Punisher will shoot and kill people because they believe it's the right way because ultimately the greater good is served. Han Solo is just like, he's a smuggler. He'll bend the law to make a profit. That's not an anti-hero. He's just making a buck.
I got what you're saying, loud and clear. The Dark Defender, Dexter Morgan, would be my ultimate pick then for the anti-hero.
I could go with that. I could definitely go with the Bay Harbor Butcher.
Yeah, we're allowed to get into TV shows, I guess.
Let's do it. Let's cover the grounds. We'll try to make an encompassing episode of memorable villains, heroes, and anti-heroes. And
Dexter, by far, is my favorite. Yeah. That character.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep talking about Dexter. I don't want to trip over this point. I'm gonna talk about something after.
That character is, I don't know if it's the writing or if it's Michael C. Hall, but whenever he is on the screen, it is so captivating, and everything he says, even his narration, it just sucks you in. Like, that character is so interesting. How he has, his father, ghost figure kind of watching over him, and he's always doing what he thinks is right. At the same time, he's controlling his bloodlust and trying to justify it by murdering people that have done bad things.
Well, I raised you Dexter Hall, and I say Rick Grimes.
Who's Dexter Hall, by the way?
Michael C. Hall, Dexter Morgan. Rick Grimes.
You think Rick Grimes is better then
No, I'm just saying.
Sure.
I think that he would be another great anti-hero in the pop culture world today.
No, Shane Walsh is more of an anti-hero than Rick
No,
is.
Shane's a fucking idiot. Shane's a villain first and foremost. He's an
Shane's
antagonist.
not a villain, man. Shane has been fucking manipulated by Lori, man. And I just freshly watched season 1 and 2 over again.
Freshly. You got through
No, I
season
just-
2. You got through season 2 again, and you're here to tell me about it. Wow.
No, I really did. And the way Lori is so passive aggressive with Shane, like he's fucked up by it, man. And by the end of the season, he just fucking snaps. He's done. It's all Lori's fault. But anyway,
Okay, well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and revisit Walking Dead, and then we'll sum up maybe a little bit of conclusion for everything, and leave our visiting audience on this loosened up edition of the Great Debate. Some things to consider. What do you think?
cheers.
All right, cheers. So, what is The Trenches? Well, The Trenches is one of our new shows on the Wired In Network. It's going to be a series, an ongoing series of interviews, and we're looking to make it insightful. It's going to be an insightful look at what it's like to work on films, work with filmmakers, what it takes to overcome the day-to-day grind and challenges of writing, film production, post-production, of course, pre-production, marketing, and distribution. Well, we'll be talking with actors, actresses, writers, directors, producers, composers, animators, basically everybody that is on my friends list in Facebook, because that's the easiest way to do it. No, jokes aside, though, we'll be reaching out to people around the world, people that are in marketing, people that are in special effects, any kind of aspect of filmmaking that you can think of is our target audience. And we'll be bringing these interviews to you on the Wired In Network, which is available for free via iTunes, along with the show, The Arcade, The Great Debate, and other quality productions. So that's The Trenches. It's going to be twice a month. That's bi-weekly for everybody on the metric system. And you'll be hearing me talk in a one-on-one forum with filmmakers, both indie and well-experienced, seasoned people working with, bigger production budgets and studio constraints. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So stay tuned for The Trenches every other week on the Wired In Network.
I got my first real six string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played it till my fingers bled, was the summer of 69.
All right, we're back with our third and maybe last segment. We'll see where the conversation goes on this laid-back, loose edition, patio-style, beer in hand, The Great Debate, talking about villains, heroes. And now we're talking about anti-heroes, and we left you off on a little bit of a Walking Dead discussion on Jenna J said Shane was the ultimate anti-hero, and I pointed to Rick Grimes. Specifically, I'm thinking Rick in season 3.
No. I said Dexter Morgan.
But now we're talking
I
about
said
Walking
Shane-
Dead, is what I just said.
Shane is more of an anti-hero than Rick is.
When we're talking about Walking Dead, is what I said, and you pointed to Shane. And I said Rick. And I think when you look at the beginning of season 3... Go ahead, you're breaking
What?
up. You're
Sorry?
breaking up a little. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
You're coming
You said
through.
anti-hero.
Yes.
I said Dexter.
Yes.
You said Rick.
yes.
And I said Shane is more of an anti-hero than Rick is.
And I'm saying let's shift the gears to Walking Dead and talk about that for a quick second. Can we do that?
Do it.
All right, we're doing it. You had freshly
Do it.
watched season 1 and 2.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Kill the younglings. Do it.
That. Just go ahead, that.
Nah, come on.
All right.
Die.
So, I think when you look at like season 3 with Rick Grimes, he
No Shane.
course not, no Shane. You see a Rick who's desperate and doing whatever he wants, making decisions for the whole group, that really suit his own greater good. It's suiting his rules and what he thinks is the end is gonna justify the means. He's taking chances, and I think you could even point to the governor as an anti-hero in the same sense. What do you think?
Oh man, you're really talking a sensitive subject right here. I could talk for hours about Walking Dead.
We'll just talk for a few minutes. Let's talk TV show, TV show only. I know you're a big fan of the books, but let's talk TV show only just for a few minutes. Rick, That's Shane, fine. The governor, maybe even Merle. I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't think the governor is an anti-hero. I think the governor is an idiot. I don't. There's nothing anti-hero about him. Nothing he does is noble. Like, he's keeping these people pretty much a prisoner, in my opinion.
But he's looking out for them. He's looking out for their best interest, whether they realize it or not. And he wants to keep his town together.
Oh, really? He is by putting guns in their hands, like children and women. He's like, they've never even held a gun. Oh, now guess what? Now you're going to attack the prison. Because we have numbers, so we're going to beat you. Makes no sense. He doesn't give a fuck about those people, man.
But that's kind of like an anti-hero, no? He's going to have the end justify the means.
I don't think so. He's not a hero. He's not doing anything heroic. He's killing and murdering for.
But he's provided for all these people for how long? He's given them a safe haven, and he knows. And I haven't seen the episode that aired a few days ago, so spoiler alert, I guess. But
oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll figure. I mean, I'm so bored with season 3, part 2 as it is. I don't really care. It's pretty obvious where the trajectory is going. But I mean, so what? He's arming his people. He's still an anti-hero because he's trying to justify the safety of other people, and a hero wouldn't kill anybody whatsoever.
I disagree with you, Rob. And again, Wired community, spoiler alert. But I must say that the governor said he will put the war aside if Rick gives him Michonne. That's all he wants. That is a man who wants revenge and nothing else. All he cares about is revenge.
So, obviously, I haven't even seen that, but I imagine I saw the preview where Rick and the governor meet, and obviously that's what comes out of it. And obviously
that's a good episode, but yeah, anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I think there's some anti-hero-ness in there, even if it's more of a passiveness. I gotta kind of probably say this probably wraps it up. I mean, I think, heroes and villains both have to be memorable in their own way. We talked about villains having their own trademark hook. But, yeah. The great debate, I guess, the ultimate judgment rests in the audience on who the best. I mean, we tried to stay cartoon villain and hero, but that obviously it swayed to comic book stuff and even into Star Wars and TV stuff. Go ahead.
Let's do a quick recap for everyone who's listening out there, right? So we're gonna do cartoons. So your pick was Skeletor for villain.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And mine was Galvatron.
Yeah.
And then the heroes, go ahead. We had
Prime and He-Man, and you said Superman as well.
Well, I mean that got disqualified. So I would say it's Optimus Prime versus He-Man.
He-Man.
And then the anti-hero, I had Dexter Morgan.
And I said Rick. So maybe we'll throw those 3 rounds up for people to vote on Facebook. And maybe we'll try to recap next week with some sort of results, or J-Rock and I will try to talk about that. What do you think?
I think that sounds fucking wicked.
I think if J-Rock was here, he would probably say, I'm going to have to go with Rick Grimes because...
Yeah, the show is fucking fixed, that's why.
The show is not fucking fixed. I have no idea what this guy's going to say at any time, I swear to God. I don't agree with his rulings half the time, and for the record, sir, I let all the combatants that I go against the great debate with pick their sides first. I don't pick. I let them pick, and I get the leftovers. So how can it be fixed with that setup?
You get more time. You're overpowered.
There is no time. Everybody gets as much time as they want.
Jeez.
Everybody gets as much time as they want. Somebody can speak for 5 minutes, and it's not my fault if it's shit, and all I need is 30 seconds. But if my 30 seconds is more than their 10 seconds, that's not my fault.
So then am I allowed to change my villain to Darth Vader?
No. Because J-Rock said so.
He's not even here.
Isn't he? Isn't he here?
I wish he was here to keep you in fucking line.
I am in line, sir. I am in line.
Guys, watch the arcade. It's the best show on the network.
Nobody's going to be listening at this point. This is an hour and 22 minutes into the show. Nobody's listening at this point.
I meant listen, not watch.
You got any other promos you want to plug?
No.
All right. Well, this has been the loose edition, the laid-back patio version edition of the Great Debate, where we've had a few beverages on the side.
Yeah.
And we've talked about villains and heroes and anti-heroes, mainly in the cartoon television settings, but also veered a bit. And we hope to see you next week. Of course, the debate results are up to you. And we'll see you next time here on the Wired In Network.